Stoic philosophy, how to face adversity. Hello. Welcome to the channel. Today, we're diving into a powerful and timely topic, how Stoic philosophy can help us face adversity. In a world full of challenges and uncertainties, Stoicism offers valuable teachings to find calm and inner strength, even in the hardest moments. So if you're new here, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our future content. Your support really helps the channel and allows us to keep bringing deep reflections into your daily life. What is adversity to Stoicism? For Stoic philosophers, adversity is an inevitable part of the human experience. From Seneca to Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, they viewed difficulties and trials as opportunities to build character and grow as individuals. While many see problems as things to avoid, the Stoics challenge us to look at hardships differently. Rather than seeking a path free of obstacles, they encourage us to find value in the act of overcoming them. The Stoic concept of adversity. For the Stoics, adversity is not just about bad things that happen. They saw each challenge as a chance to apply their principles and strengthen their virtues. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, believed that adversity reveals our true character. He argued that while no one can escape pain or hardship, we can always choose how we respond. For him, our role isn't to flee adversity but to use it as an opportunity to grow in wisdom, patience, and self-control. Epictetus also taught that events themselves are neutral. They're not inherently good or bad. It's our response that determines if something will have a positive or negative effect on our lives. While this perspective may seem difficult to accept, it's liberating. Even in the face of great adversity, we have the power to choose our reactions. This is where the true strength of Stoicism lies. Adversity as a path to virtue. To Stoics, virtues like courage, justice, wisdom, and self-control were ideals of a well-lived life. But these virtues couldn't fully develop in an environment where everything is easy and comfortable. As Seneca often said, difficulties strengthen the mind, just as physical labor strengthens the body. In other words, just as muscles need challenges to grow, our virtues need to be tested to become stronger and more authentic. For a Stoic, each challenging situation is a chance to practice these virtues. Imagine, for example, going through a disappointment, like a financial loss, a career failure, or even an illness. The Stoics encourage us to see this adversity not as an injustice or punishment, but as a chance to practice patience and resilience. Ask yourself, how can I respond to this in a way that strengthens me? Rather than succumbing to bitterness, Stoicism teaches us to view every challenge as an opportunity to apply these virtues and shape our character. Adversity as a mirror. Another fascinating Stoic idea is that adversity can act as a mirror, reflecting our emotions, fears, and even our weaknesses. When things are going well, it's easy to keep calm and appear virtuous. But in times of hardship, our true thoughts and feelings come to the surface. Seneca said, "No wind is favorable to a sailor who doesn't know where to go." During adversity, we clearly see where our insecurities lie and how well we're able to apply our beliefs and values. For instance, someone deeply shaken by criticism may reveal a need for external approval or a lack of inner security. Meanwhile, someone who despairs in financial difficulty may realize they've placed too much of their security in money rather than in their own adaptability and effort. For Stoics, these situations reveal parts of ourselves that we might not otherwise see, allowing us to work on them. Adversity as an ally on the Stoic path. To the Stoics, seeing adversity as an ally is an important shift in perspective. Of course, it's not easy to see pain or suffering as positive at first. Stoicism doesn't suggest that we should seek suffering or that it's enjoyable. Instead, by accepting difficulties as a natural part of life and as opportunities for growth, we change our relationship with them. Rather than resisting or complaining, we learn to act and reflect more rationally, focusing on what we can control. Epictetus, in particular, taught that there are two types of things, those we can control and those we cannot. Adversities often fall into the latter category. Our role, then, is not to change these circumstances but to change our attitude toward them. This practice is one of the foundations of Stoicism and represents a mental shift that, once mastered, becomes a source of peace and inner strength. A Stoic example of facing adversity. A classic example comes from Marcus Aurelius himself, who faced numerous crises and conflicts during his reign as Roman emperor. He dealt with plagues, wars, and betrayals, yet he maintained his composure. In his book Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rock against which the waves continually break. It stands firm, and around it, the waters calm down." For him, true strength lay in remaining steady and unshaken by challenges. Instead of being overwhelmed or giving in to despair, he found strength in his convictions. When we view adversity through this lens, we see that each difficulty can be a chance to cultivate our own inner rock. Like Marcus Aurelius, we can develop the skill to find peace amidst chaos and to see growth where others might only see suffering. This is something Stoicism can teach us to practice, transforming how we perceive and deal with adversity. Understanding what is under our control and what is not. Stoic philosophy emphasizes a central idea for dealing with adversity: the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. This simple yet powerful concept is one of the fundamental principles of Stoicism and offers a new way to approach the difficulties of life. When we understand and apply this division, we can maintain our peace and serenity even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "There are things that depend on us, and there are things that do not depend on us." This teaching echoes throughout Stoic philosophy, and its purpose is to help us direct our energy toward what we can actually influence. This approach serves as an antidote to the frustration and stress that often arise from the desire to control what is beyond our capabilities. What is under our control? According to the Stoics, what is within our control includes our actions, our attitudes, our choices, and, most importantly, our thoughts and emotional reactions. Ultimately, although we cannot control what happens to us, we can choose how we respond to those situations. This inner freedom is at the heart of Stoic philosophy. Imagine, for example, that you lose a job. The loss itself is not under your control, but how you respond to that loss is. You can choose to react with despair, or you can view the situation as an opportunity for learning and growth. This Stoic principle invites us to focus on what we can do with the circumstances, rather than focusing on the circumstances themselves. It is important to note that Stoicism does not advocate for passivity. It is not about accepting everything without question or failing to take action. On the contrary, the Stoics argue that we must act, but consciously and in alignment with what is within our power. In other words, we should do our best with what we have, while accepting that the final outcome may not be in our hands. What is not under our control? The other half of this principle involves recognizing and accepting what is beyond our control. According to the Stoics, the world around us is full of events that are, to a large extent, unpredictable and beyond our influence. This includes everything from the behavior of other people to natural phenomena, political decisions, the economy, and even the state of our health. For the Stoics, resisting this reality is a source of unnecessary suffering. Often, we waste our energy trying to change what is beyond us, such as wishing that people would behave in a certain way or that situations would unfold as we expect. This kind of attitude leads to frustration and suffering because life does not always conform to our desires. Imagine, for example, that you plan an important outdoor event, but on the day of the event, it starts to rain. You could get upset, curse the weather, or even feel that the universe is against you. However, by doing so, you are only aggravating your own suffering, as the rain, something clearly beyond your control, will continue to happen. Stoicism invites us to accept these external events as they are, so we can conserve our energy to deal with what we can actually influence, our reaction. Stoic acceptance. The concept of amor fati. The Stoics developed a concept called amor fati, which literally means love of fate or acceptance of fate. This concept is the culmination of the idea of focusing only on what is under our control. Amor fati is not about resigned, passive acceptance, but rather an active and intentional acceptance of everything that happens. Marcus Aurelius expressed this idea in his writings when he said, "Accept everything that happens, even those things that seem adverse, as part of the plan of the universe." For the Stoics, practicing amor fati means accepting all events as necessary and, in some way, perfect within a greater order. This challenges us to embrace both pleasure and pain, both gain and loss, seeing each event as an essential part of the journey. It is an invitation to let go of mental resistance and embrace each moment with openness, understanding that even adversity has something to teach us and strengthen us. This acceptance is not easy. In fact, it can be extremely challenging, especially in times of intense suffering. However, by practicing amor fati, we can reduce the emotional impact of adverse situations. Instead of wishing things were different, we adopt a stance of deep acceptance, which brings us inner peace. The benefits of controlling our response to the uncontrollable. By focusing on what is within our control and accepting what is not, we can achieve a sense of emotional freedom. This approach reduces anxiety, as it makes it clear that we do not need to fight against everything that happens. It is a process of letting go, freeing ourselves from expectations, and finding peace within ourselves, even when the world around us seems chaotic. For example, someone facing a serious illness may not be able to change the reality of the diagnosis, but they can choose to face the treatment with courage and optimism. This type of attitude strengthens the mind and brings dignity to the situation, even if it is painful. Moreover, by controlling our reactions, we can influence our environment in a much more positive way. When we remain calm and serene, we inspire those around us to do the same. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said that by controlling our reactions and attitudes, we can become masters of ourselves. This self-control does not mean suppressing emotions, but rather directing them wisely. When we accept what is not in our hands and act on what is, we cultivate a true sense of freedom. We are not prisoners of external circumstances, but masters of our own actions and emotions. Stoic freedom, living in harmony with nature. Another central concept in Stoicism is the idea of living in accordance with nature. For the Stoics, living in harmony with nature means understanding the workings of the world and acting in accordance with it. They believed that the universe operates according to a rational order, and that we, as rational beings, should strive to understand and respect that order. This understanding is key to the distinction between what is under our control and what is not. Nature includes both the events beyond our sphere of influence and our ability to respond to them. Thus, by respecting this natural order, we accept that some things are beyond our reach, while others depend solely on us. This view allows for a greater connection with the universe, as we stop trying to control the uncontrollable and instead align ourselves with the natural flow of things. Stoic exercises for practicing acceptance and inner control. To apply this philosophy in daily life, the Stoics recommended some practical exercises. One of them is premeditatio malorum, or premeditation of problems. This exercise involves imagining potential adversities that you might face in the future. This kind of visualization helps prepare the mind to deal with problems in a more balanced way. How to develop resilience and acceptance. Resilience is one of the most admired and studied skills in psychology and philosophy, and in Stoicism, it plays an essential role. From a Stoic perspective, developing resilience means learning to stand firm in the face of challenges and difficulties, maintaining a calm and rational demeanor even when circumstances are adverse. Stoic acceptance does not mean passive resignation, but rather an active and wise acceptance of what life brings us, allowing us to use every situation as an opportunity for personal growth and inner strengthening. Stoic philosophy teaches that we all have a potential for resilience that can be cultivated and strengthened. Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius offer guidance on how to develop this inner strength. They believed that by practicing detachment from what we cannot control and valuing wisdom and virtue above all, we can overcome pain and suffering with dignity and purpose. Let's explore how we can develop this Stoic resilience and practice an acceptance that elevates us rather than limits us. Resilience as an exercise of the mind and spirit. For the Stoics, resilience is comparable to a muscle that must be trained to become stronger. Seneca compared the development of resilience to physical strengthening. Difficulties strengthen the mind, just as physical labor strengthens the body. Adversity is seen as a kind of test that reveals how much we are able to endure and grow. The more we exercise in the face of difficulties, the more resilient we become. This mental exercise begins with cultivating an attitude of preparation. Epictetus recommended that, upon starting the day, we should mentally prepare for potential setbacks. He suggested that we imagine, early in the morning, the difficulties we might face throughout the day, such as someone's bad mood, traffic, or even unpleasant news. This exercise, called premeditatio malorum, or prevision of problems, helps us develop resilience because it allows us to anticipate how we will respond to each situation without being emotionally disturbed. By preparing ourselves, we can deal with problems in a more serene and efficient way, as they do not catch us by surprise. Additionally, the Stoics encourage the mind to be constantly trained to focus on the present moment, instead of worrying about future problems or regretting the past. Resilience arises from a mind focused on the now, willing to act with clarity and rationality instead of getting lost in lamentations or fears. By bringing the mind to the present, we find the strength to face each challenge that arises without being overwhelmed by unnecessary thoughts. Stoic acceptance, overcoming resistance to the inevitable. Another crucial aspect of developing resilience is acceptance. The Stoics teach that, in order to overcome suffering, we must first accept reality as it is, without resistance. Epictetus said, "It is not the things that happen to us that cause us suffering, but the judgment we make of them." In other words, our emotional pain does not come from the situation itself, but from what we think about it. By learning to accept what we cannot change, we can reduce our suffering. This Stoic acceptance is very different from passive resignation. While resignation involves a sense of powerlessness, Stoic acceptance is an active and conscious choice to embrace reality without internal struggle. It is the recognition that there are greater forces beyond us that we cannot change, but that we must adapt to and learn from. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What happens to you, happens for the good of your nature, and everything that happens to the universal nature happens for the good of the whole." An example of this Stoic acceptance would be how we react to the death of a loved one. For the Stoics, death is an inevitable part of existence, something that is beyond our control. Instead of revolting against this reality, Stoicism teaches us to accept death as a natural part of the life cycle. This acceptance does not eliminate the pain, but it allows us to process it with dignity, without letting ourselves be consumed by resistance or bitterness. By accepting this reality, we create space to remember the person with gratitude and love, rather than fixating on the sense of loss. The practice of Stoic detachment to strengthen resilience. The Stoics believed that detachment is an essential practice for developing resilience. This detachment does not mean indifference, but rather the understanding that many things we value are beyond our control. Seneca said we should remember that everything we have, our health, our belongings, our relationships, is temporary and can be lost at any moment. This kind of detachment allows us to value things for what they are, without becoming dependent on them for our happiness or inner peace. For the Stoics, true value lies in virtue, which is internal and always accessible. They believed that by practicing detachment, we free ourselves from the fear of loss, and in doing so, we become more resilient. Imagine, for example, someone facing a financial crisis. If this person is attached to the idea of material security, they might fall into despair. However, if they have practiced detachment, understanding that true value lies in their ability to face challenges, not in their wealth, they can respond to the crisis with more serenity and focus. This Stoic exercise of detachment helps us place our value in something that no one can take away from us: our integrity, our virtue, and our ability to choose how we respond to circumstances. This kind of resilience makes us stronger because we do not depend on external circumstances to find peace or security. Developing an attitude of gratitude even in adversity. Another interesting aspect of Stoic resilience is the cultivation of gratitude. Although it may seem paradoxical, the Stoics believed that gratitude is a fundamental part of developing resilience. Instead of focusing on what is lacking or what we have lost, they encourage us to focus on what we have and what we have learned, even in difficult situations. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, frequently expressed gratitude for everything life gave him, including the challenges. Stoic gratitude is not superficial. It acknowledges the importance of difficult moments as part of our growth. When we practice gratitude, we strengthen our ability to see the positive side of situations, which helps us face adversity with more ease. This exercise teaches us to focus on what is good in the present moment, diminishing the negative impact of problems and strengthening our mental and emotional resilience. Understanding what is under our control and what is not. One of the most fundamental and powerful lessons in Stoicism is the distinction between what is under our control and what is not. This concept, seemingly simple at first glance, invites us to explore a profound way of facing life. In practice, understanding and accepting what is truly within our reach and what is not helps us maintain peace and serenity, even in the face of difficulties. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who lived as a slave before becoming one of the most important figures in Stoicism, taught that there are things that depend on us and things that do not depend on us. For him and other Stoics, this distinction was essential because it defines the point where we should focus our energy and attention. By focusing only on what we can control, we can direct our efforts productively and avoid frustrations that drain our energy unnecessarily. What is under our control? For the Stoics, what is truly under our control is limited but also incredibly significant. It includes our thoughts, our choices, and our actions. When we reflect on this, we realize that, although we cannot control all the situations around us, we have a powerful influence over how we respond to them. This distinction is crucial because it is where our true freedom lies, as well as our ability to create a positive impact. Imagine a scenario where we lose a job. This is the type of situation that is beyond our immediate control. We cannot control the company's decision or the economic circumstances that led to the dismissal. However, our reaction to the situation, how we choose to interpret and deal with it, is completely within our control. We can choose to stay stuck in anger and frustration, or we can decide to see the moment as an opportunity to reflect on new directions, acquire new skills, or explore different career possibilities. The importance of control over our reactions is one of the central principles of Stoicism. Epictetus reminds us that by focusing on what we can control, we are able to transform even adverse situations into opportunities for growth. This perspective does not mean that difficulties will disappear, but it gives us the freedom to decide how we relate to them. What is not under our control? On the other hand, there is a vast range of things that are beyond our control. These include, for example, the behavior and choices of others, natural events, political decisions, the economy, and even health in many aspects. Stoicism teaches us that resisting these realities is a source of suffering. This happens because, when we try to control what is uncontrollable, we create internal tension that only leads to frustration. A common example of something beyond our control is the weather. Imagine you planned an outdoor event, but on the scheduled day, a storm begins. If you become upset about the situation, cursing the rain and wishing the weather were different, this will only increase your discomfort, as the weather will remain the same. Instead, if you practice Stoic acceptance, you will see the storm as part of nature and redirect your energy to adapt the event or make the most of the day in another way. This accepting attitude helps preserve our inner peace and allows us to respond to circumstances with flexibility. The Stoics believed that by accepting what we cannot change, we free our minds from a useless burden. Resistance to the uncontrollable is like trying to swim against a strong current. We exhaust all our energy and, in the end, become tired and frustrated. Therefore, Stoicism invites us to let go of what we cannot influence, saving our energy for what is within our reach. Stoic acceptance. The concept of amor fati. A deeply Stoic concept that expresses this acceptance of what is beyond our control is amor fati, or love of fate. This term was popularized by Nietzsche, but it has its roots in Stoicism and is an essential part of the philosophy. Amor fati means not only accepting what happens, but also embracing and loving everything that comes our way, even the difficulties and suffering. Marcus Aurelius expressed this idea in his writings when he said, "Accept everything that happens, even those things that seem adverse, as part of the universe's plan." Amor fati is, therefore, a proactive and positive acceptance of all events. This attitude is challenging because we often have a tendency to resist and fight against what we do not like. However, the Stoics believed that by accepting everything as part of a larger order, we can find peace and contentment even in difficult times. When we develop amor fati, we transform each adversity into an opportunity for growth and learning. This concept is especially useful in painful situations, such as a significant loss. Imagine someone who loses a loved one. The pain is inevitable, and Stoicism does not suggest that we should ignore or suppress our feelings. Instead, amor fati encourages us to see the loss as a natural part of life, a transition that, while painful, is part of the greater order of the universe. With this perspective, we find space to experience the pain without it becoming a perpetual suffering. Rather than resisting reality, we embrace change and allow the experience to transform us. The benefits of Stoic acceptance and emotional resilience. One of the main benefits of the Stoic practice of distinguishing between what is and what is not under our control is emotional freedom. When we accept that we do not need to control everything to be happy, our anxiety decreases, and we are better able to deal with adversity with greater tranquility. This acceptance gives us a sense of peace because we no longer carry the burden of wanting the world to conform to our desires. To illustrate, think of someone facing a health crisis. This person cannot alter the diagnosis, but they do have the option to choose how to respond to the situation. They can face the treatment with determination and positivity, focusing on recovery, or they can sink into despair, amplifying the emotional weight of the situation. By accepting the reality and acting on what is within their control, such as following medical advice, seeking emotional support, and maintaining a healthy mindset, This person strengthens their resilience and faces the challenge with greater serenity. This Stoic principle also influences our relationships. When we understand that we cannot control the behavior of others, our interactions with people become lighter and more compassionate. If someone disappoints us or treats us unjustly, instead of reacting with anger or resentment, we practice Stoic acceptance and recognize that the actions of others are not under our control. This understanding helps us to forgive and focus on our own reactions, cultivating peace and harmony in our interactions. Living in alignment with nature, the natural order of the universe. The Stoics also believed that living in accordance with nature is fundamental to acceptance and understanding what is or is not under our control. For them, nature is rational and follows an order, and we, as rational beings, are part of this whole. Understanding and respecting this natural order means accepting that certain events are inevitable and that there is a natural flow of things. And with that, we come to the end of this video about Stoic philosophy and how we can apply its teachings to face adversity with resilience and serenity. I hope you found value in these ideas and that they can inspire you to look at life's difficulties in a new way, always seeking personal growth and inner peace. If you enjoyed this content and want to follow more reflections on philosophy and personal development, be sure to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you'll be helping us continue producing content that promotes self-knowledge and learning. And of course, don't forget to like the video so that more people can discover it and, perhaps, find inspiration in Stoic philosophy to transform their own lives. Thank you very much for watching until the end. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. It will be great to exchange ideas with you. We'll see you in the next video, and until then, remember, focus on what is within your control and embrace each challenge as an opportunity for growth.